A 10-second penalty that exploded into global outrage. A confidential FIA report surfaces, and it changes everything. The data inside proves Hamilton was right all along. Come no more, the 7-time champion finally loses his patience, and the FIA's silence becomes deafening. By lap 6, the crowd was on its feet. Verstappen ahead, Hamilton behind. The two rivals locked in a rhythm only they understood, braking later, turning harder, pushing beyond limits that would make any normal driver flinch. At turn 4, Hamilton went for it. Outside line. Brake modulation perfect. Tires screeching, rear slipping. The car touched the grass, dancing at the edge of disaster, and somehow he caught it. No spin, no contact, just artistry at 200 miles per hour. The commentators lost their voices. "That's Hamilton magic," one shouted. "That's not luck, that's genius." The Ferrari pit wall erupted until the radio crackled. Car 44 under investigation for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. The words fell like a bomb. The room went still. Even Vasseur blinked twice, unable to process it. "For what?" whispered one of the engineers. On the onboard camera, Hamilton's hands stayed calm on the wheel. His voice quiet but cold. "An investigation? You've got to be kidding." His race engineer didn't reply. A few seconds later, the voice returned. "Confirmed 10-second penalty." Hamilton exhaled slowly. 10 seconds for keeping it on track. Perfect. He drove on, precise as ever, purple sectors flashing on the screen. But behind the precision, frustration simmered. This wasn't about time, it was about principle. He'd done everything right. He'd followed the rules of physics and of racing. And yet, the system had found a way to punish control. "We're reviewing the data," his engineer assured him, but Hamilton already knew what that meant. "They've made up their mind," he said. "They always do." The voice was calm, not angry, and that calm was more frightening than fury. When the race ended, Hamilton finished 8th not because of performance, but politics. The FIA's penalty had gutted a masterpiece. Back in the paddock, he walked straight past the cameras, expression unreadable. "We'll handle it internally," Vasseur said to the media. But Hamilton knew better. The tone of his voice when he said internally was the tone of a man who'd seen this story before. Only this time, the ending would be different. Days later, it happened. A journalist from Autosport Italia leaked a document marked confidential FIA race analysis, Mexico GP. Inside it, a paragraph buried on page 9. Driver of car 44 experienced 0.36s loss upon rejoining. Incident classified as advantage gained. Hamilton's team read it once, twice, then again. "Wait," one of the engineers said. They knew he lost time. The truth hit like a punch. The FIA hadn't just been wrong, they'd hidden it. When Vasseur handed Hamilton the printed page, he read it in silence, jaw tightening with every line. "So that's it," he said finally. "They buried the evidence." The mood in Maranello the morning after the Mexican Grand Prix was unlike anything the Ferrari team had felt all season. It wasn't disappointment, it was disbelief. The garage lights were dimmed, screens glowed softly against the red walls, and the usual chatter had vanished. Engineers huddled in silence around the data monitors, their expressions hard, focused. They weren't looking for excuses, they were hunting for truth. Hamilton's penalty had already divided the paddock, but now there was something bigger, something that didn't add up. Frederic Vasseur entered without a word, a file clutched in his hand. It had arrived from an anonymous source that morning, no header, no signature, just a file name, FI Internal Report X25.pdf. He dropped it on the table, and the room fell silent. Hamilton stood behind him, arms crossed, face unreadable. "What is it?" he asked. "Something they didn't want us to see," Vasseur replied. He opened the file, and for a moment nobody breathed. Inside were telemetry summaries, steward notes, and a section labeled driver data, car 44. Line after line of numbers, technical terms, and one sentence that made the room freeze. Driver of car 44 experienced a 0.36-second loss upon rejoining. Hamilton's eyes narrowed. "Read that again," he said quietly. The engineer did. "Loss, not gain." The meaning hit instantly. The FIA's own internal report, the one that had never been released, confirmed what Hamilton had said all along. He hadn't gained anything. He'd lost time. The penalty, the statements, the press briefings, all of it had been built on a lie. Hamilton leaned forward, palms flat on the table. "So they knew," he said. His voice was calm, but cold enough to make the air shift. "They knew I lost time, and they still called it an advantage." Vasseur rubbed his temple, pacing slowly. "This is a disaster," he muttered. "For them, not for us," Hamilton replied. "They buried this to protect their decision. It's not incompetence, it's self-preservation." He turned toward the engineers. "How long have they had this data?" The head analyst looked up hesitantly. "The timestamps show it was compiled before the steward's ruling." The room went dead silent again. Hamilton stared at the screen, then exhaled through his nose a slow, steady breath that sounded more like control than calm. "So they made the call," he said, knowing it was wrong. For most drivers, that realization would have turned into anger. But for Hamilton, it became purpose. He didn't shout, didn't slam his fist. He simply said, "Pull everything. Every file, every trace, every line of telemetry from that lap. If they're going to lie, we'll drown them in evidence." It wasn't a request. It was a command. And the room responded. Engineers who had been silent for hours suddenly moved with urgency. Files loaded, data rendered, screens filled with graphs proof of what Hamilton had felt instinctively in the car. "Throttle down, grip loss, delta negative," one of them said. "There's no gain. None." Vasseur turned to Hamilton. "You're sure you want to go public?" he asked. "You know what this will do." Hamilton looked at him, eyes sharp but unwavering. "I've spent 2 decades trusting the system. If they've lied once, they'll do it again. This isn't about me, it's about the sport. If Formula One loses truth, it loses everything." His voice was steady, but every word hit with precision. This wasn't anger, it was conviction. Inside the Ferrari Performance Center, the atmosphere was surgical. Screens hummed with data streams, telemetry charts pulsed in fluorescent light, and the sound of keys tapping filled the silence. The leaked FIA document had detonated like a bomb. Now the mission was clear. Dissect it, verify it, and prove it beyond any shadow of doubt. Every engineer in the room knew what was at stake. This wasn't about one driver's penalty anymore. This was about exposing an entire system built to protect its own mistakes. Frederick Vasseur leaned over the central console, his voice low but firm. "We treat this like a crash investigation," he said. "Nothing leaves this room until we know exactly what they hid." The engineers nodded. The main screen lit up a full telemetry overlay of Hamilton's lap 6. One line read for Ferrari, another blue for Red Bull. "Frame by frame," said the lead performance analyst. "Watch what really happens at turn 4. The footage rolled. The car snapped, tires grazed the grass, throttle dipped, brake pressure spiked every millisecond, a masterclass in recovery. Hamilton stood at the back of the room, silent, studying the data like he was reading his own thoughts. "Pause it there," he said suddenly. The screen froze. "See that? The traction drop right before I correct the slide, that's a 3/10 loss, not a gain." He pointed to the delta graph with one finger. "That's the moment they called an advantage." The engineers exchanged glances. "You felt that in the car?" one asked. Hamilton smiled faintly. "You don't feel it," he said. "You know it. It's part of you. The car talks, you just have to listen." The analyst zoomed in closer, showing the throttle input. 48%, he said. "If you'd been accelerating, that would be 60 or more." Hamilton nodded. "Exactly. I wasn't attacking, I was saving it." The lead engineer muttered under his breath, "They punish control." Hamilton turned slightly. "They punish clarity," he corrected, "because the data makes it impossible to justify their story." The room fell quiet again. What the FIA had classified as advantage gained was, in truth, a data fingerprint of mastery, a moment where human instinct outperformed simulation. Hours passed, graphs turned into conclusions, and conclusions turned into evidence. Ferrari's technical team compiled their report, Telemetry Verification FIA Internal Inconsistency. 112 pages of proof that the FIA's hidden file wasn't just incomplete, it was manipulated. Some timestamps didn't match the official log. Certain data points were shifted by milliseconds, just enough to create the illusion of a gain that never existed. "They doctored the overlays," one of the analysts said quietly. "It's subtle but deliberate." Vasseur clenched his jaw. "So they didn't just hide the truth," he said. "They rewrote it." Hamilton walked up to the display again, studying the mismatched timestamps. "This isn't incompetence," he said. "It's orchestration." His voice was calm, but every word was deliberate. They thought nobody would look closely enough. But this, he tapped the screen, this is what happens when you underestimate people who care about the details. He turned to the room, his tone changing from analysis to command. "Publish it. Everything. No filters. No edits. If they're not afraid of the truth, they won't mind us showing it. Within hours, Ferrari's report reached the media. Sky Sports, BBC Sport, ESPN, and Motorsport.com all received copies simultaneously. The headline was instant. FIA document manipulated Ferrari and Hamilton present evidence. The reaction was volcanic. Martin Brundle said it best. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's an exposure. Hamilton's instincts were right again. Ted Kravitz added, he's not just the best driver on the grid, he's the most dangerous man when you try to lie to him. Across social media, the phrase, "you can't outthink Hamilton," trended worldwide. Inside Ferrari's control room, the engineers watched the news feed in silence. "We just changed the conversation," said one quietly. "No," Hamilton replied, eyes fixed on the screen. "We reminded them what truth looks like." Vasseur looked at him for a long moment, then said, "You've turned a scandal into a statement." Hamilton smiled not with arrogance, but with certainty. "It's never about proving them wrong," he said. "It's about proving that integrity still matters."